Hey everyone, and welcome back to KB Decor Crafts. For today's video, I wanted to show you guys how I intend on decorating for this fall season. I wanted to bring in more neutral colors as well as different textures into my decor, and I also created this really beautiful centerpiece made out of Dollar Tree items that'll be perfect for your dining room table or console table. I really love how each one of these DIYs turned out, and I can't wait to share that with you, so let's get started. So for the first DIY, I used one of these Dollar Tree styrofoam pumpkins, and I began by removing the stem off, which was fairly easy except mine broke off, but it's just a toothpick insert. Then with a pair of scissors, I just cut out a circle on the top and then popped that out. I'm going to be using Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster to give this a few coats just to hide that bright orange color. Then taking some raffia from Dollar Tree, I'm going to unravel it and then extend them out to straighten them out completely. You're then going to grab about 5 or 6 strands and tie them up at the top of them to be able to create a thick braid. I find it easier to tape down on my surface, that way I'm able to separate the strands into 3 sections to be able to create a regular 3-strand braid. Also while braiding, try not to tighten the braid so much. We want this to be loose to be able to be as thick as possible. And then continue to braid all the way down and tie at the bottom. Once you have enough made, you're going to go ahead and begin to glue them down onto the pumpkin. So I didn't have a direction of where I was going at first with this, so I was just trying to test it out and see how it was going to look. I began by gluing down each strand kind of in the groove of the pumpkin to follow those lines. You want to make sure to wrap the braid all the way down to the bottom and hot glue it underneath. Then you just want to continue to hot glue each braid in the grooves of the pumpkin, creating a space in between. And continue this all the way around the pumpkin. I then went back to the raffia and created some smaller braids to be able to fill in those sections. And for me, it worked out easier just to place down a strip of hot glue and then placing on my smaller braids. Music licensing reimagined. And you just continue to fill in each section with your smaller braids. Once you're finished filling them in, you'll have something that looks like this. So I wanted to add a different color and texture to this pumpkin. You could use the white nautical rope from Dollar Tree. I just had some leftover macrame cord that I decided to use to create different sections to this pumpkin. I'd wrap the cord all the way around and meet back in the center, then using some hot glue, placing a strip down to then glue on the cord. Once that was done, I would start on the other side and completely wrap the cord around again, cutting off right at the center and then gluing that down. I then continued to do the same thing using 4 different cords. You should then have 8 sections. And this is what it looks like so far. Then using these wooden stems that I found at Dollar Tree, I picked through them to find the perfect size for my pumpkin. Then just using some hot glue, I put it at the bottom of the stem and then pushed down in the center as much as I could. I feel like once I added the stem, it was finally starting to look more like a pumpkin. Then just to add a little bit more detail, I grabbed this wired jute string that I got from Dollar Tree as well, wrapped some of it around a pencil just to create a curl and cut it down to size. Now I do have to note that once you do cut this jute string, it does start to come off the wire itself, so I added a little dab of glue on each end to make sure that it wouldn't come off the wire. So I cut out 2 of these little spiral curls to put on my pumpkin. These were a little long, so I did cut them down a little shorter later on, but I just hot glued them where I wanted them on the pumpkin. Now here you could see where I shortened them down a little bit, but this is the final result of this first pumpkin. Now moving on to pumpkin number 2, I grabbed the same Dollar Tree styrofoam pumpkin, and this time I'm using the white nautical rope. So I'm going to go ahead and cut out a circle just like I did with the other one with my scissors, and then using the nautical rope I'm going to actually unwind them. That way I'm only using one section and not the entire rope, just to make it thinner and not so thick. I also painted the pumpkin off camera just to hide that bright orange color. So I went ahead and measured to see how much of the cord I would need to cut. I wanted to make sure to spare any cord and not waste it, so I just cut it down to size, then matching it up to the rope, making sure to cut down the same equal size on all my pieces. Once I had several strips cut out, I then began to hot glue it down, just like I did before with the other pumpkin, placing down a strip of hot glue, then starting at the center in the hole, I place the cord inside and then wrap it around to the bottom. Now I initially thought I could just continue to glue the strips down side by side, but I soon found out that that wasn't going to work and it wasn't going to look very good, so I eventually just ripped them off as well and decided to go section by section like I did with the braided raffia. So here you'll see where I've already glued down the sections that I wanted to, and then I went back in with the ropes to then fill in those sections just like I did with the raffia. So this was all pretty much repetitive of the same steps that I did for the other pumpkin, so I didn't want to bore you with the same details, but just repeat the same steps and fill in each gap. If you have any tips or tricks on how to make this look a little cleaner, I would love to know in the comments down below, as well as to share with others that might want to recreate these. So here's the finished result of this pumpkin. I did the same thing what I did with the other one, which is add a different color and texture by using that wired jute string to wrap around each section, as well as creating some of those spiral curls for the stem as well. And here you can see a little better of how I filled in each section, but yeah, I really like how this one turned out. On to pumpkin number 3, I used one of these mini velvet pumpkins from Dollar Tree. I thought I could just rip off the stem, but it wasn't easy to do, so I then realized that I could just cut this off with some scissors because I wasn't going to be keeping the velvet anyway. So yeah, that's what I did to remove the velvet off this pumpkin. So once you do take off the velvet, you are then left with this really cute styrofoam pumpkin, which I thought was better shaped than the other one. But yeah, I really like this little pumpkin and it was perfect for this project. So I was initially going to use some of this nautical rope to wrap around the pumpkin, just like I did with the other two, but I didn't want to do the same design. So this time I used some of the scrap burlap that I had left over from another project, and I decided to wrap this around first and cover up the pumpkin completely. Now what's great about this pumpkin is that it already has the center cut out, which was perfect to be able to stuff in the burlap and hold it in place. I also chose not to paint this pumpkin because I actually liked the way it looked showing through the burlap. Also, to keep the pumpkin from sliding around, I did put a dab of glue on the very bottom and then began to stuff in the burlap in the center. Now keep in mind that the best way to cover up a pumpkin like this is by using more of a square shaped piece of fabric rather than this long ribbon that I had. But I made it work and just cut out some sections to cover it up. So it's not perfect, but it worked out for this project. Next, I cut out some pieces of nautical rope that I could use to cover up those seams and also create grooves in the pumpkin. With the nautical rope, I created 4 sections around the pumpkin, and then I went back in between those sections with the white macrame cord that I used earlier. With that, I used 4 pieces of cord. Music license. And thankfully in the pack of stems that I had, I found a small enough stem that was perfect for this little pumpkin, and I just hot glued that in the center. Now here's the finished result of this little pumpkin. I also added one little curl with the wire jute string, and here you can see each section that I did with the string and the rope, just to cover up some of that seams and to give it a better look. Now moving on to my centerpiece, I found this tray at the party section at Dollar Tree, and then using Waverly chalk paint in the color Truffle to completely paint the tray.
Artlist.io.
Now you can paint your tray any color you'd like. I think it would look really pretty in black or even white, but I decided to go with this brown color to just try to make it look more like a wooden tray. Once the tray was completely dry, I went back in with Waverly chalk paint in the plaster color to add a little bit of that weathered look detail to this tray. So using a really old dry brush, I dabbed into the paint and dabbed off as much as I could, then began to brush all around the tray. Now this step is definitely optional. You're not going to see most of this anyway with everything that we're going to put on top of the tray, but I figured if I would end up using this for another project, it would already be painted the way I like it. One area you still might be able to see is the edges of this tray, so I went ahead and just wiped some of that plaster paint on there as well. Then taking some of these mini pumpkin picks that I found at Dollar Tree, I took several of them out and I did not like the color that they were in, so I decided to just use that plaster paint again to give these, I think I gave them about 2 or 3 coatings just to cover up that yellowish color and those black speckled spots. I painted about 4 of them and then set them off to dry. So I had this little pumpkin from a set from Hobby Lobby, and I wanted to paint it more of a navy color, so I grabbed this blue acrylic paint as well as adding a little bit of orange paint to create the color that I wanted. So I always add a little bit of color at first and continue to mix, and then I'll add more if I need to get the desired color I want. Once I was done mixing, I then had this really pretty navy color. I then gave my pumpkin a light base coating and then set it off to the side to dry.
Reimagined.
So once that was dry, I then used a thicker paintbrush to cover this entirely, and I gave this about 2 coats. Then going back to my little pumpkin picks, I realized that the stems would be showing, so I used some of the Waverly Wax Antique paint and just colored the stems on top and on the bottom. So I found these candle holders at Hobby Lobby, but I feel like you could find something similar at the Dollar Tree as well. I put a dab of glue on the bottom of them to make sure that they weren't going to move when picking up the tray.
Reimagined.
Now, I got these eucalyptus picks off of Amazon, which I'll have a link down below, but I wouldn't say they're 100% the best. They were okay, but I got this 20 pack for, I believe, $12.99 on Amazon. You could probably find cheaper and better quality at Walmart, but since I still have my foot issue, I can't really drive right now, so I haven't been able to go out to Walmart to get some for myself, so I had to just use what I could get right off of Amazon. But yeah, these at least worked out great for this project. I also got these cotton picks that I got from Dollar Tree, and I mainly wanted them for the pine cones that they had on them, so I removed those off and used them for my centerpiece. So for those picks, I also shortened them down and stained them, and I placed them in my arrangement just in different ways just to see how I liked it best. You can customize this to however you'd like. This was my first time making an arrangement like this, so I was just playing around with the different pieces that I had. And these candles are from Dollar Tree, and I put those right in the candle holders. So this is what the arrangement was looking like so far, and I felt like it was still missing something, so I grabbed some of these berry picks from Dollar Tree and just pulled off some of the picks and cut them down to fit better and just place them in different areas of this arrangement. But yeah, you can customize this however you'd like to. They have different colors that you can choose, but I thought they matched best with the blue pumpkin. So here is the final result, and I absolutely love how this looks. I put this on my console table and I love how it looks lit up. It just really ties in the vision that I had for it. I am really loving the blues in my decor this year. I would love to know what colors you're using to decorate for fall. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you like these DIYs, don't forget to like the video and also subscribe if you're not already subscribed to my channel. And if you do recreate these DIYs, don't forget to tag me on Instagram. I love to share your work. I look forward to making some more fall DIYs for you guys, and if you have any requests, please leave it down in the comments below. And until next time, I'll see you in my next video.